So effective communication क्या है? How do you speak exactly what the interviewing officer is asking you, or anybody for that matter in front of you? Like your mother has asked you something to do something. Are you doing exactly the way she told you? Or your teacher has given you an assignment. Are you doing exactly the same way or not? If you're sitting in front of an interviewing officer, if he's asking you certain reaction, certain answer to a question, you have to understand firstly what the question is, and then you have to give the exact answer of that question to that person. It should not be more, it should not be less. So that he knows, it should not be less, he knows that your knowledge is up to the mark. But you should not speak more than that in such a manner that you get caught in your own web. Because the moment you speak extra than what is asked, his next question will be on that only. Because that is how the interviewing officer is trained. He's supposed to actively listen to you and frame very powerful questions for you to make sure that your qualities come out. And you have to ensure that your qualities come out in the right measure, the way it is expected in that particular interview. Like I gave an example to quite a few boys and girls who are very fighters we interview. I tell them there's a one test in which you have to write a story, seeing a picture. So I said your language, English language could be very flowery language. It could be the best. You may be an English literature graduate. Very flowery language, beautiful language. You would use beautiful idioms, lot of similes, everything, fantastic. And maybe that story is fit for being a Nobel Prize. But that story will not be fit for service selection board interview. Because service selection board interviewing or psychologist is making you write the story with a different purpose. He has some different parameters in mind. So when you are sitting across in front of an interview, you should find out what are his parameters. Like parameters for an interview for a central services, IAS, IPS, IFS would be different. Service selection board is different because requirements of that service are different. And requirements of armed forces are different. Similarly, when you're sitting in front of a corporate guy who's interviewing for a job, his requirements are different. But by and large, about 50%, that is your communication, those all parameters are same. They do not vary much. But the rest of the 50% is something different when the kind of questions he asks. So you should be prepared for that. That is called effective communication, that you convey the right thing. Today you go for an interview for service selection board, you will be speaking different language. Tomorrow your interview for, let's say, TCS with the Tata Consultancy Services or some other MNC, your strategy has to change as per that. And similarly, suppose you're going for central services, IPS exam, then your strategy has to change. So that effective communication, how will you get it? That is we'll see. Okay. What are the characteristics of effective communication? It says, I have already explained to you, but it says whenever you're talking, you should be clear and concise. Chota or clear. This is what you are telling him. Accurate. It should be accurate. Facts should be given accurately. And it should be relevant to the need of the receiver. As I told you, the interviewing officer sitting for service selection board for the armed forces is different. The interviewing officer for IPS is different. And interviewing officer for corporate is different. So you have to make sure whatever your theory is, it should be relevant to that particular thing. And it should be timely. He asks you a question, you put your head down and keep thinking for 10 seconds. It's too late. The moment you put your head down, you break rapport with the interviewing officer. I'll teach you how to maintain it. So the moment you put your head down, you'll think, इसको कुछ नहीं आता, ये सोच रहा है. और सोचने में 10 सेकंड लगा दिए, 15 सेकंड लगा दिए, means you are not aware of what is being asked. So you should be immediately doing it. And I recommend 3 seconds. 3 seconds should be good enough a time to understand what exactly the question is, what has he asked, and how has he to answer. So for that preparation you have to do in advance. How? I will let you know in due course of time. Then it should be meaningful. Whatever you are telling him, it should have some meaning. It should convey the real answer of that particular question. And it should be applicable to the situation. You're sitting in front of an interviewing officer, he'll ask you the same question. But he gives you situations that are different. Like he says, you're going on a street and a guy comes behind with a knife in his hand. So what will you do? Now, it is again, he's checking your courage. He's saying, what is your reaction? Are you scared? And second situation he gives you, you're sitting on a post and China attacks, you're an officer in charge of that post. What will you do? So situations are different both the places. Though he's checking your reaction in terms of courage. So likewise, your whatever answer you give, it should be as per the situation painted by the interviewing officer.